Hello there. Welcome to GitLab Pipeline series part 3. In this session, we are going to learn few new features of GitLab. In our previous two labs, we have already discussed few of the basic concepts of GitLab. In lab 1, we have discussed about stages, jobs, runners, artifacts, variables, and pipeline trigger. In lab 2, we have discussed about environments, cache, and dependencies. In today's session, we are going to learn about what is parallelization, matrix builds, inherit, extend, and include. So what is parallelization? So this basically we use when we want to run the job in parallel with multiple instances. I mean, when we have a job that is very large and you want to split it and run into multiple uh, runners. So in that case, we can use parallel. So in this case, if you see this load test job that can be run parallelly with four runners. Okay, so uh, so here usually it will use whenever the job is very vast and we need to make it run in multiple as a multiple jobs. Okay, we'll see how we can how it is can be done using the pipeline. In a sample pipeline, I'll show that. The next one is matrix builds. So matrix build we want to use whenever we want to build our application with multiple environments or OS, or maybe using the different version of the language. Okay. For example, here, if you see, if we want to build this Python application, and we want to build this in different versions of Python, for example, 3.8, 3.9, or 3.10. So this job will run, or this job basically the build job, it will build the Python application using three different uh, version of the Python language. Okay, so in this case, it will create three test jobs automatically. It will create three different test jobs. One will run with Python 3.8. The second one will run with using Python 3.1, and the other one with using 3.10. So we are defining only one job, but we are specifying with matrix multiple version of the Python language. So in this case, this single job will create, it will run in three different, it will create three jobs with using the three different versions of the Python language. Similarly, if you want to uh, build a node just application and you want to use node version like 14 or 16, and you want to build that in different OS like Ubuntu or Alpine. Okay, so in this case, in the matrix we can mention the version of the language we are going to use and the version of the OS where we are going to uh, build this application. So if you see here, there are two options and OS are two options. So 2 into 2, that is matrix, it will multiply. So it will create four different jobs. Okay. So that four different jobs, how it will be? It will create like one job with uh, Node version 14 and OS Ubuntu, the other job with Node version 14 and OS version Alpine. Similarly, another job will be 16 with Ubuntu and 16 with Alpine. So there will be four different jobs it will create. Yeah. So next, uh, we'll discuss about inherit. Okay. So what is inherit? So in some scenario, suppose we want to create a global default. Okay. So this global default basically, if we want to include some specific images or some specific script that we want to run in most of the job. Suppose in our pipeline, we wanted to use the same image, the runner image, and we want to execute some uh, before script. Okay, before the project, sorry, job starts, we want to run few script. Then what we can do, we can um, write as a default configuration. Okay, so this will by default get included in each of the job of the pipeline. Okay, once we define as a default. Okay, and whatever here image or any script will include, that will be included by default to the job in the pipeline, any job. So in order to, because in some scenario, okay, so there are multi-job, for there are 5 jobs, okay, and by default then it will include by default in all the jobs in the pipeline. But suppose you want to restrict it, okay, in job, fifth job, I don't want this default, um, global default to be included in my fifth job. So in that scenario, what we can do is we can use inherit. Okay, so in that case we can use inherit, and we can make it the inherit default is false. Okay, so in this case it will not include this global whatever we defined here. For example, in this case, right, uh, the default global default is, we mentioned image should be alpine latest, and the script it should execute like this something. Okay, so what it will happen, here we have defined 4 jobs, different jobs. In job 1, by default it will get included. Okay, because the default property is that once we create a default, uh, global default, it will be, by default it will include it to each job of the pipeline. So here it will included here, and whenever this job will execute, it will use alpine alpine latest image for the runner, and it will execute the script by default. Okay, and also then it will run this script, whatever echo job 1 it will run, so it will print these 2 things. Okay, and it will use this alpine latest image for the runner. In job 2, what we mentioned here, inherit default false. So in this case it will not inherit any of this. Okay, neither the image nor the before script, none of this will be inherit to this job 2. Okay, it only execute this script. Okay, and the runner will not also use this alpine latest, it will use the default image whatever is there. Okay, what GitLab provides. Next, in job 3, we defined here inherit and default. Here we mentioned image, so this means it only inherit the image, it only inherit the image, but it will not inherit this one. Okay, so this before script will not execute in this job. Okay, but the runner will use alpine alpine latest image. Okay, now in job 4, if we see, what I mentioned is, I have not mentioned inherit. So what does it mean? It will include this, it will include it will include in this job. Okay, I mean it will inherit, and it will use the image as well as the before script. But again, in the job 4, I have mentioned image Python 3.1 to something. Okay, so what it does is basically it will override that. Whatever is inherited from the global, this job will inherit the global image. So it will replace it with the whatever mentioned in the job specific image. Okay, so this way we can use inherit. So the purpose of using inherit is to restrict the global default. Okay, so if it is, we have defined global defaults in our pipeline, then we can customize it, whether we want to inherit it, or we want to inherit some partially few of the global defaults, so that we can manage using inherit. Okay, if you don't want to use at all, then we can simply mention inherit default false, otherwise it is true and it can be included in each of the job in the pipeline. Hope it is clear. Next, reuse. There is spelling mistakes, I'll update that. Reuse job with extents. What is extent? So basically, whenever we want, because in our pipeline it contains maybe, depending upon the size, it can contain 10-20 jobs, okay, with different stages. So in some cases, right, we can create a global job, and we can use that job to be inherited with other job. I mean, suppose we have already created one job that uses a particular image for the runner, and we want the same runner in few of the other jobs. So what we can do, we can create a base job. Okay, so base job is nothing like, we are defining some common task, like the image type or some specific script that we need to run in other job. Okay, that means if in our pipeline there are few jobs, they have some common functionality. Okay, they do some common functionality, or they share some common information like image. So in that scenario, we can do what we can do. We have to create a base image. Okay, base job. Sorry. So we can create a base job. We can define whatever you want here, and that we can use in our subsequent jobs. Okay, that how we can do by using the keyword extends. Okay, so what you can see here, we have created a test. We have defined a base job, and that base job we define like image, it use alpine latest and some script. Okay, that common script that want to run in different jobs. So that we have mentioned here. Now what I can do, I have created a new job here that belongs to stage test, and I try to extend it. Okay, dot base job. So that means I want to use image this, and I want to run this script in this test app. Okay, so this what it does is basically it will use these things. Okay, and along with this it will also execute this script. Okay, so this is very clear. I think what is when and how, where we can use inherit and extend. Okay, so what is the main difference between these two is uh, extents we'll use whenever there is some common functionality or common uh, information that we are sharing among different jobs of the same pipeline. In that scenario, can define a base job, and that we can inherit to it the subsequent, or where in which job we want to use it. Okay, but inherit is nothing. It is like a some global configuration, and that global configuration by default it will be shared or included to the other jobs. But we want to, if you want to restrict, then we have to use the inherit. Okay, so this is the main difference between extends and inherit. Okay, so if you see here, as I mentioned, extends can be used to share images, scripts, before script, artifacts, tags, rules. Okay, these are all we can share by using a base job. Okay, and we can once we define the base job, then we can use the extents to use it in its subsequent jobs. Then inherit basically will use when, as I told, it is by default used inherit to all the jobs in the pipeline, and we can restrict using the keyword inherit. Okay, next, what is include? Okay, so in some situation our pipeline will be very large. Okay, so it will be difficult to read and to maintain, right? So because if we see, we can have in a pipeline we have many stages, and each stage can contain multiple of jobs. Okay, so if our pipeline contains some 10 different stages, and each this stage has multiple jobs like 10 or 5, 10 jobs, right? So in that case the file will become very large. Okay, so in that case it will be not readable, and not easy to maintain, right? So to make it, what we can do is like we can split that pipeline into different file. Okay, so for example, we can, for the build stage we can create a build pipeline, and deploy stage we can create a deploy pipe, sorry, not pipeline, build YAML file, and for deploy we can create a deploy YAML file. Similar like that, for test also we can a different test YAML file. Okay, so those build, whatever we created like build YAML, deploy YAML, or test YAML, that we can again include to our main YAML file. Okay, so this way, what we can do, we can make it like a kind of modularize. Okay, like you in a programming language we use different files, and we can include those files in our main file. Okay, or wherever the file we are using our main function, right? Similarly, same way here we also create a different YAML files. Okay, for different stages or different jobs also we can define, and that we can include here in the main YAML file. Okay, so this way what we can do is like, for example, uh, here you can see this is a build YAML file. Okay, and here created a job. Okay, and it belongs to build stage. Similarly, there is a deploy job here, and it belongs to deploy stage. Okay, so this is two different file, and this is my dot gitlab.ciml. So this is the name of our main pipeline. Here what I did is just you have to include. You have to use the include keyword, and we have to mention this is local. Local means in it should exist in our directory, and you have to mention okay it is under the directory CI and the file name is this. Then what you can do, we can use the stages build, test, and deploy. Okay, no need to mention. So it will whatever is there we mentioned right, it will get executed here. Okay, it will take execute this and it will execute this as it is mentioned here. Okay. Similarly, if you want to uh, use few of the files that is already exist, for example, there is some inbuilt files are available. So in that case, if you want to use the inbuilt YAML files that is defined in your other projects, then we can reuse it. Like you can include like the name using the project name in which project it belongs, okay, and the file path where it is available and in which branch it is available, reference main or any if you have any feature branch or any other branch you can mention. Okay, so this way also we can include if there is any existing template or YAML files that is for if you want to share it, because whenever we have an organization and we have different projects, and in that case we need, because the pipelines it is kind of same right, the build, creating the build or creating a Docker image, pushing into directory, so some of the functionality will be common, right? So in that case what we can do, we can create a shared YAML file, and that shared YAML file you have to store somewhere in one project, and then that same shared YAML file we can include in our other different project pipeline by using this include keyword. Okay, so in this case it will be we can use code reuse, so we can apply our like uh, the or like dry right, do not repeat yourself, that concept we can DRY. So we should not repeat the whatever we have already written or what is already available, we should not repeat it. So for that reason we can use the existing pipeline, and for that we use the include keyword. Okay, so yeah, this all about the today's um, new features we have discussed. Let's go, we'll just see a dummy pipeline for this, how we can test it using all these features here. Okay, so if you see here I have created a build template. Okay, this is one of the YAML file. It is not a pipeline, it's a simple YAML file, and in this YAML file I have created a base job. Okay, we have discussed like extends this job we can extend to other job. So this contains a base job, and this simply you running some script, assume that okay this job, this is a common script that need to be executed in other jobs. Okay, and also I have created another dot base template. Okay, so here it is simply using a particular image, and it has also few script to execute. Okay, this is in the build template YAML file, and in the main GitLab YAML file, what you can see here, I have included, I have used include, and I have used this base template here. Okay, so this is clear. So what it will do, it will include these two things, this base job and this base build template. Okay, next, as usual, okay, here we have the stages we are using: test, build, and deploy. And also there is a global configuration or global default I have created. So the default is it is using image latest, sorry, alpine latest image for the runner, and it run some script here. Okay, and this will be by default included to all the jobs here. So we have this test parallel job, and we have a build matrix job, and we have also deploy job 1 and deploy job 2. So by default it should be included in all these jobs. But if you see here, mm, here I have not mentioned that, but then it is by default it is included, right? This default global default that is included in this uh, test parallel job. Okay, and here if you see here inherit, what I did is default image only, I'm just include the image here. Okay, this image I'm just including, but the script part, whatever the script before script, that will not include it to this build matrix. Okay, And if we see here, inherit false, what I mentioned is false here. So in this job, it will not include at all. Okay, this will not include at all here. And if you port job, what I did is, uh, sorry, job 2, stage deploy and script this. Here, again, I have not mentioned, so it will include everything here. Okay, I mean the global defaults. Okay, now here I have used extends base job. Okay, so what is this base job? Base job, it is part of this build template YAML file that is included. Okay, it is defined here. So this will get included to this job here, test parallel job. Okay, we will see whether it is printing that script or not. Okay, next here the build matrix, it use build template, right? So this build template is here. This build template, it use alpine. We have not mentioned any tag here, I mean the version, so it will take the default tag and it will execute this script. Okay, and here in the parallel, this build, right, it will execute parallelly. Okay, so here we have mentioned the matrix. Matrix, it is, we have mentioned the OS, Alpine, and Ubuntu, and target is debug release. So just we mentioned like, okay, it is built in debug mode as well as in release. Okay, so this way we just mentioned. So there are 4 jobs will be created for each, for this job. Okay, and this will run parallelly. Okay, so we have not mentioned here for the parallel number, right? It will be 3 4, we have not mentioned. So since we mentioned the matrix under this, it will create uh, all these 4 jobs will run parallelly. Okay, so this is the concept of parallelization. Okay, yeah, that's all. So if you go and check this in our, if you go to the build, the project 3 and pipeline, you can see this is already created. But if I want to run it, let me just trigger it manually. Okay, it will start triggering. You can see it is created a test parallel. Let's go to this test parallel job. Okay, and it extend from this, it is test. Okay, test stage, and it is getting executed. So here what it shows is testing parallel. Here what we mentioned is parallel 3. That means it creating 3 parallel jobs and all executed simultaneously. Okay, if you go here, we can see, what we can see is, as, okay, it is, if you see here, this, it is printing running parallel test, right? If you see, it is printed running parallel test. Also it print base job setup. Okay, before printing the running parallel test, it also print base job setup. So where it print that, so since we have used this extends base job, and in the base job it shows base job setup. Okay, so this echo, it is printing here. Okay, got it. So okay, and here parallel 3, so this is mainly um, creating 3 parallel jobs, and that is getting executed here we as we see here. Okay, as we see here, this is 3 parallel jobs. Next, build matrix. Here also it created 4 parallel jobs, and you can see here the combinations are like Alpine debug, Alpine release, Ubuntu with debug, and Ubuntu release. Okay, so they are different combinations of job it created. But if you see, we have not mentioned here any, I mean any parallel, any number we have not mentioned, but under parallel we mentioned the matrix, and the matrix itself, it is a combination, like it's a multiplication, if you can say. Okay, the matrix, it multiply what are the options are available here. Okay, here 2 options, 2 into 2 is 4, so it created 4 different parallel jobs. Okay, and what is the output? If you want to see here, go to any one of these. Okay, what it's printed here is building OS Alpine, OS Alpine, and target debug. Okay, so this is one option, and before to that, it is printing preparing build environment. Okay, preparing build environment. So since it is extended from build template, and in build template we have mentioned preparing build environment, so it is getting printed here, right? Okay, and this combination, right, this will be different for different job. Okay, OS will be Alpine or whatever other one, and targets will be debug or release. Okay, the next one is okay, deploy. In case of deploy, if you see inherit false, so in this case inherit, okay, in this case build matrix size only we have inherit the image. Okay, so it will not print this running default step. Okay, in that case, and in this case basically it will false, so it will not print this uh, default running default steps. It will only print the deploying application. Okay, let's see how it is in job one, but in job two it should print both. Okay, that will just verify. Let's go again to the pipeline. Okay, now let last one we have to see, and here job one, job two. Let me open into different tab. Okay, you can see here it only displaying deploying application, nothing is other, it's not deploying. Okay, and here it is deploy, running default steps, it shows it running default steps as well as deploying application. Okay, so if we go here, uh, running default steps and it's print deploying application. Okay, so this way we can use the different and the features that we discussed, like parallelization, inherit, extends, okay, and include whenever we write our real GitLab pipelines. Okay, we'll discuss more about this in our next uh, lab. We'll discuss how we can create build Docker images and what are the runners we will use for those Docker images, and how we can push that Docker image to different mm, container registry. Okay, so those things we'll discuss, and the next we'll keep proceeding with new concept, like in real how to build application using .NET or using Python, and how to create the images, and how we can use different testing um, concept to uh, verify our tests and deploy into real services, like it may be our Kubernetes or application, web applications. Okay, so those things we'll learn in our future classes. So um, thank you so much for going through this session, and uh, you just try to follow this tutorial and try to do it yourself. Okay, I'll provide this uh, GitLab as well as the YouTube URLs, so that you can follow this and share it to your friends and colleagues, and like the channel and subscribe it. Thank you so much. See you in our next session. Bye bye.